So a very good afternoon, very good morning to everyone joining us on the NMTA platform. This is our first ever initiative. I would like to introduce you to our esteemed speaker, Miss Dr. Radhika Sherkhane, a distinguished academician and seasoned pharmacologist. Ma'am has been serving as the head of department at SDM College of Medical Sciences and Hospital, Dharwad, with over 23 years of experience in teaching. 19 years of experience include the post MD experience. So, ma'am has significantly contributed to both undergraduate as well as postgraduate teaching. Ma'am holds a degree in MD Pharmacology from Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences, Bangalore, and she has pursued additional qualifications in clinical research as well as rational drug use. Ma'am's achievements goes beyond this. Ma'am is an active researcher with over 20 publications in reputed journals. She has also played a pivotal role in academic governance, curriculum development, and is also an active member of ethics committee. So, ma'am, over to you. Uh, I hope this session would be helpful to all of us.
Thank you, Zeel, for the introduction. Should I begin sharing my screen with the members?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Dr. Zeel, if you could confirm that the PowerPoint is visible to all of you.
Yes, ma'am. It's very clearly visible.
Right. Thank you so very much for the introduction. Before I begin, let me just mention to all of you present here that I am aware that I am speaking to an audience who has been into this field of medical education from quite a long time, especially for those who have been after 2019. We are all aware of this topic. The topic is pros and cons of competency-based medical education, that is CBME curriculum. I would be focusing, of course, mainly on the Indian context part of it, and more so with the undergraduate curriculum, and here and there a reference about it in the postgraduate curriculum. I take this opportunity to thank the National Medical Teachers Association, the NMTA, as well as the Indian Pharmacologists United Network for giving me this opportunity to share my viewpoints on this topic. Also to the august audience here, so many of you have been in this field, so I wouldn't especially talk anything beyond that we have heard and said about it. But then, as you have seen probably that the literature is not properly arranged in this topic, and hence this seminar or the webinar. I would like to take this chance to thank the founder and coordinator of NMTA, Dr. Arvind Singh Panwar sir, professor of pharmacology at SMIMER, Surat, who has been kind enough to extend this invitation to me and present in this webinar today. Also, Dr. Kritik and his team for coordinating all these events. I also acknowledge the help of the IT team who is organizing this, and all the participants who have taken time to join the webinar. So let's begin the webinar. But before that, I would like to gauge on your reactions for this topic. So especially when I say that if you had to answer this question, in these three figures that you see, who would be a better performer? Imagine the situation where two type of learners you're facing in driving classes, swimming classes, violin classes, or for that matter, learning in any kind of a skillful task. If you had two type of learners, say first type, the T type, as you see in the picture here, the T type of learners where they are those who learn through a theoretical context, that is reading through books and various other resources and watching videos for learning swimming classes or getting oriented to how to perform in Olympics, or for that matter, reading notes of musical books where you have to learn from here. If a group T type learns this way, and a second group CB type, which learns after theoretically They also have an in-field, on-field, on-site experience. Like for driving, they hire a coach and also have a real-life experience or a simulation exercise, dive deep into a swimming pool to learn from coaches, and also take part in violin classes with their mentors, and finally perform. Whom would you choose as a better performer? Who do you think, the team T or those type of CB? Now I want your reactions. All the audience can use this option. You see this option on your screen at the lower point of the Google Meet platform. There is an emoji scene. I'm sure most of you used it. You choose an emoji of a clapping hand for the T group if you feel they perform better. If you feel CB group performs better, then you have a thumbs up. So I would like to see thumbs up and the C or CB type or T type. Are these slides visible to all of you? Oh, already I have seen so many reactions coming up. Many of you giving me thumbs up, saying that the CB type performs better. Yes, I can see many thumbs up coming up there. All right, that's very nice. Okay, so most of you feel that there would be a thumbs up kind of a situation most of the times, wherein the learners learn better by both the ways. That is, they either learn through theoretical or the CB way, that is through the practical approach. But I feel most of you agree by doing both, that is having a theoretical background and then learning it through practical sessions. So diving deep into this aspect of learning, let me just introduce to you the session objectives. I have divided this topic for a better understanding into these 5 headers. The evolution, the story behind how we landed up having curriculum of CBME in India. A few differences which are very important, key ones between the older traditional and the newer CBME one. The pros and cons of the present CBME curriculum and how we would go ahead with the future prospects. So to know this type of difference between the two learning patterns, we would have to have these stories to begin with. That is how we evolved through the older traditional to the newer CBME curriculum. So quickly, all that you know, I'm just putting it down in this particular chart. Now, in this timeline of CBME, you see there have been various committees like Mudliar Committee, the Medical Education Committee, the Srivastava Committee, all of who proposed changeover from the older guidelines, wherein there were all discrete bodies, to just come together as an integrated medical and health services team. They also proposed that our country should have a medical health education commission, so that we could put up some guidelines to have a particular set or a committee to monitor this in our country. So after decades of this effort, we finally had something called as a Vision 2015 policy document by the then MCI, and also the coining of terms like IMG, Indian Medical Graduate, and the CBME. I need someone to confirm if the slides are visible or not.
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Okay, the chat box says the slides are not visible, so that's the reason I asked. Okay, if it's visible, I can continue. So the Vision 20, thank you. Vision 2015 policy document defined these two important terms, CBME and IMG, and therefore there was a creation of all such documents of 2015. However, this wouldn't materialize because of the issues of planning and implementation, and it continued till 2019, and finally we had the proposal envisioned and then proposal accepted in 2019. The Ranjit Roy Committee gave us the establishment of NMC, and the Lodha Committee, Justice Lodha Committee, gave us the National Exit Test proposal, which was again taken upon and agreed upon and implemented. So the advent of GMER 2019 with the NMC establishing itself and the MCI becoming the erstwhile, we had our new CBME guidelines. So this is also another picture which shows the colorful representation of a change. Before 2019, we had this GMER 1997, which kept on amending. And in 2018, we had the latest amendment. In 2019, GMR was released and we had many curriculum sub-competency documents, various modules for teaching. Then the MCI was replaced by NMC by the Parliament order. Then we were hit by the pandemic. This was one of the major hurdles we faced while implementing CBME. Then we had various learning modules, e-learning modules and pandemic module, etc. By 2020, we had a fresh set of guidelines to be implemented for the 2019 batch. Then in 2022, we had the announcement of next exam as well as the FAP, that family planning program, family adoption program, which were the two important changes were introduced by NMC. Then came the draft of GMER 2023 in June, which was modified again, and we had the final CBME guidelines by August. Further to this, we also have now a 2024 document with a FAQ document as well. So this was the growth or the evolution of CBME in our country. And as you can see, there were number of changes which were done during the course. This is a small attempt from my side to take you through, to begin with the concept of what I actually want you all to take forward home today. That is the two types of learnings, how do they differ, and why we have evolved from the older traditional curriculum to the newer one. This small effort is an AI developed video where it kind of depicts the change in the learner's way or perception towards learning. It shows you the difference between the older traditional theoretical way and the newer way where the theoretical base has to be there definitely, but then it takes a level forward with practical experience. So this is a story of the kingdom of Avanti where there are two princes, Vikram and Aditya. So I would play the video and I request all of you to concentrate and listen to it and enjoy.
In the ancient kingdom of Avanti, two princes, Vikram and Aditya, were sent to the Gurukul to receive their education. Both were eager to learn, but their paths to knowledge differed significantly, representing two contrasting approaches to education. Vikram, a diligent and scholarly prince, excelled in the traditional methods of learning. He rehearsed ancient texts and memorized shastras on archery. He excelled in every theoretical examination, impressing everyone with his knowledge and intellect. Aditya, while respectful of the scriptures, was more inclined towards practical application. Aditya spent long hours practicing his aiming in archery under the guidance of the Guru. He was more oriented towards learning practical utility of archery principles rather than just knowing details about them. Aditya went on visits to neighboring kingdoms, observed how treaties were negotiated, and how disputes were resolved. He learned to listen and make decisions based on the situation. While Vikram could recite Vedas perfectly, Aditya engaged in discussion with the Guru to understand the philosophy and apply it to his daily life. After their education, both princes returned to Avanti filled with confidence to lead the kingdom. The time came for the princes to demonstrate their skills when a neighboring kingdom threatened war, and Avanti needed a skilled diplomat. Vikram failed during negotiation due to rigidity of theoretical equations, even though his knowledge presented elaborate strategies. Aditya, however, was successful in averting the war by negotiating a treaty between both kingdoms with his practical experience, listening skills, and communicating abilities. Sometime later, during an archery tournament, Vikram failed again in hitting the target even though he had perfect theoretical knowledge about the trajectory of an arrow. While Aditya, due to his practice, drew the bow with graceful precision and hit the target. Following these events, the king realized that while Vikram had immense knowledge, it was Aditya who truly mastered the arts and was competent to lead the kingdom. This legend of Avanti is a timeless reminder that true mastery comes not from simply accumulating knowledge, but from applying that knowledge with skill, wisdom, and understanding. Just as a physician must not only know the textbooks but also be competent to heal the patient with soft skills. The path to true competence lies in the integration of knowledge and practice, guided by the wisdom of a teacher and honed through experience. In the ancient
So I hope you enjoyed the story of Princes Vikram and Aditya. If you see, one of them, Prince Vikram, learned through the rhetoric of theoretical knowledge. He was definitely a scholarly prince who read everything from the books. But however, at the time of the test, his theoretical knowledge did help him, but then he couldn't probably solve all the practical situations that he was facing. Compared to him was the prince Aditya, who learned to not only learn from the books and have a theoretical information, but he also spoke to his teachers. He went into the public where he had to know the real life situations and implemented that to solve so many of his problems in the kingdom. So this also is just the situation of our undergraduate students too. You would arguably say that we all learned the old way. We all have become good doctors, good teachers learning the old way, where in the traditional model, experts framed the syllabi, then framed the curriculum, and basis of which was the derivation of educational objectives and the assessment methods. Yes, this did happen, but then our present day situation, if you see the healthcare needs of the country, these healthcare needs probably are not met with the older curriculum, or I can say met with to a lesser extent. With the advent of the CBME educational model in our country, you can see that the competencies, the outcomes that our students should have is all based on the health needs of the society, the health needs of the community, and therefore these form the basis of making our curriculum and the competency. Now these competencies would give us the assessment methods such that our IMGs, our Indian medical graduates, would definitely come out much better in the way as to handle a real life crisis, a real life health problem in our community. And that was how it changed the situation. This was also necessary because already the countries abroad like Canada's CanMed, ACGME of USA, GMC, if you can see, had introduced this undergraduate CBME curriculum long ago, and they have been following it till date. It all had these kind of components which we didn't see or were not mandatory in our older traditional curriculum. So there was definitely reform in our medical education needed. Also, the older traditional curriculum did have its pros and cons. As I was telling you, no major changes happened over years together. It was only in 1997 that our medical education curriculum had seen some changes. Also, it was the amendment that happened in between here and there, but the major transformation wasn't seen in the traditional curriculum. Yes, it did have a time-tested, you can say, a vast experience, wherein our teachers found that there was a strong knowledge base in our students, which was given impetus, and this was the strongest point of our oldest curriculum, that is our traditional curriculum. The teachers had shouldered all the responsibility all these days. They did the planning, they did the teaching, learning, they all had the assessment, and the students' onus was less. They just had to perform to the teacher's expectation. I do agree that there are arguable points here where they would say that some of the students did take the responsibility of their own learning. However, it was not a mandatory thing as per the timetable, or there was no set guidelines for it. However, the cons in or challenges while implementing the traditional curriculum were the basis for the reform. So let me take you through those cons or challenges which we faced in our traditional curriculum. Those were that we were at the crossroads, as I was mentioning. We were facing challenges with the rhetoric, the old routine way of doing things. Also, it was an outdated curriculum. We taught in silos. Silos are something like this, the cans or big tanks where the two tanks having contents are separated. There is no link between one tank and the another. Just like we taught preclinical subjects in the first year, paraclinical second year, and then clinical subjects in the third year. There was definitely, you would argue with me that there was some kind of integration available, but then it was not on paper, it was not documented, it was not compulsory. So some did it, in some colleges they didn't. There was also something called as an inverted triangle curriculum. The basic science subjects, we had a lot of them in the beginning of the course, the MBBS course, and the clinical subjects were having onus later. So this was the trend Integration, if you say, there were experts coming together from different subjects and teaching one topic. For example, if I have to take, say, osteoporosis, then teachers from anatomy, teacher from, say, pathology, teacher from orthopedics would come and deliver their part of this lecture over or osteoporosis, and that was an integrated session. Many of them didn't even do this. So on terms of integration, we had very little in the older curriculum. So this also was one of the reasons for the changeover to be needed. There were some phenomena like sage on stage teaching. That is, it was completely the teacher oriented effort. The teacher was doing all the tasks. The teacher was directing the students, which was actually not very, kind of conducive for the students' active involvement. The students were passive learners. The self-directed learning was less. Yes, we had good performers who were as it is self-directed. There were students who didn't need actually teachers' help. They did perform by their own. But there were slow learners. There were people who did not have this attribute. There were also students who were not aware of lifelong learning skills. Most of them concentrated on just getting a degree and then going into postgraduate courses and their coaching. Also, there was more emphasis on the cognitive domain. I refer to Bloom's taxonomy here, where the knowledge learning part is the cognitive domain. More of it was towards the cognitive domain in the traditional curriculum. There was less emphasis on psychomotor domain, that is learning skills, psychomotor skills, performance skills, and also there was less onus on affective domain, that is empathy, professionalism, ethics, and communication skills. There was something called as hyposkelia, which was noticed. So hyposkelia is a condition where a learner lacks clinical skills. So in our situation in medical education, our undergraduates were definitely very well trained, and by internship, they were more of given clerical work, I'm sorry to say. And there are definitely debatable issues here where the interns performed very less clinically. They were more oriented towards the NEET coaching or postgraduate coaching courses, and they knew that this was just a year's transition from undergraduate to postgraduate course. So they were less oriented towards acquiring clinical skills. That was another reason where the traditional curriculum had to have a reform. Also, there was something called a hidden curriculum. You would agree with me that most of us saw our senior professors, how they would interact outside in ICU with the attender, how they break the bad news to the patient's attenders, how they would counsel a patient for surgery, or how they would talk to the relatives during ward rounds, etc. We all learned professionalism, ethics, and various other communication skills by this hidden curriculum, by observing our teachers. But this had to change. There had to be specified area for teaching, learning, and assessment too. There had to be feedback given to the students as well on this part of the curriculum. So this was one of the challenges which we're seeing through the traditional curriculum, and it had to change. It had to have a reform. There was inadequate assessment. By means, I need to say that an year-long training, the student was assessed by a 3-minute clinical viva, or probably just a short and a long case. I'm sorry to say that if a particular case of a patient was not there that day on the assessment of, the exam day, then that case wasn't assessed. There was no long case on that. Also, assessing a student's skill, what was learned over 1 year or 1.5 years by just conducting a final summative exam, was what was happening in the traditional curriculum. And therefore, a continuous assessment was not there, which was another need for change over to the newer curriculum. A workplace-based assessment to see how the communication skills are developing, how empathy is being exhibited by the student. There was no such opportunity in the traditional curriculum. There was very less chance of a feedback mechanism in the older traditional one, because the students, those who wanted feedback or who wanted to learn from the teachers or have a feedback, have an interaction, would definitely come, but it wasn't compulsory. So many students did not approach the teachers. There was no time and space for them to do so in the older one. So there was again a challenge and a need for a change. Also, it wasn't an outcome-based approach. The students were not accountable for what they had learned. It was more of a time-based learning, They had to just finish the curriculum at the end of the year or year and a half. But now in the CBME, we had to have number of skills certified to go on from one phase to the other. So that also was required. There was very less of sports and extracurricular and research activities in the older days, and there was nothing like an elective in the traditional curriculum. So there was a need for outcome-based education to have all these included in our new curriculum, and hence the answer to this problem or challenges of the traditional curriculum was an outcome-based approach. So as John Dewey has quoted, that if we teach our today's students by the older methods, then we will rob them of a tomorrow. And therefore, the Lancet Commission then proposed generational reforms as informative change to make our experts, our students, focus on information and skills and become experts, bring about a formative change in our undergraduates so that there is a focus on socialization and values, and they then become professionals. We also have a transformative change so they develop these leadership attributes, and so they can bring a change in the community and they would be change agents. So this probably convinces all of you that there was a need for a reform. There was a need or the time to change now. So finally, this was the answer to the traditional curriculum's problems. What problems we had in our older curriculum could be solved by the competency-based education, which was supposed to de-emphasize on the time-based learning, and it had to have a learner-centeredness. So we had this CBME to be implemented by the MCI then. So they met in March 2011, made up some guidelines for the implementation, and they called our Indian medical graduates as the doctors of first contact, or they were now called primary care physicians, or the ones who would cater to the health needs of the society. So these were very Indianized terms of our CBME curriculum. So we had those doctors who would definitely cater to the primary healthcare needs of our society. So there were so many recommendations by the UGMEB, that is Undergraduate Medical Education Board. I'm sure I wouldn't read them all. I have mentioned a few of the important ones here, like Foundation ECE, integration, skills training in the skill lab, the doctor-student methods, SDL, SGT, etc. So these were recommended and taken up, and the GMER was released in 2019. There were release of so many competency booklets as well as the various modules. They used the existing framework. This number is of 2019. The regional centers, the nodal centers trained the medical education units of medical colleges. The NMC's academic cell and the Board of Governors played a vital role in releasing the rollout plan, and with the existing system of our setup in the medical colleges like MEU, CC, we had various faculty development programs conducted, various committees formed at the college level, that is alignment integration team, phase-wise committees. There were timetables framed, they were planning for IAs, all uniformly done in most of the colleges, and then we had to implement this CBME. However, with the hitting of COVID-19, we had to shift to e-learning, but then we got guidelines from the NMC at that time, and finally we had to change over to CBME through the e-learning platform. They find the Indian medical graduate. I would like all of you to focus on these two terms. We did help NMC create our IMGs, who were the physicians of first contact, but they were definitely globally relevant. That means they would treat our Indian community and its healthcare problems, but then they would also be globally relevant. They would also know what is happening globally. So this was the important change which changed us from the traditional ways of teaching towards the learner-oriented practical skills teaching. They had to perform this role. We all are aware that we had clinician, leader, communicator, lifelong learner, professional as the roles in 2019, and two more were added in 2023. Our IMGs also had to be critical thinkers and researchers. So these roles had to be performed, and that is how we differed from the traditional curriculum. So to break the monotony, let me take this opportunity to gauge what you learned till now. What we discussed till now was how we change over from the traditional to the CBME curriculum. So now I request the people in the audience to give me this poll, and I want you all to scan this QR code on your screen. You can use your camera app, you can use Google Lens, and then join the slides, join the active poll. All right. The people who can't use the scanner can go to Google page, type slido.com, then type this code, that is slash 3889128, and join the poll. I can see whoever is joining in the slide. All right, many people are joining. You can type one or two keywords that you feel are the differences between CBME and traditional curriculum. We have 1 minute time. Okay, I can see the responses already. It's skill oriented, it's more systematic. Okay, you have to type one or two words and send and submit. All right, I can see so many. There are self-directed learning, this analytical approach, very nice. Critical thinking, skill-oriented, all right. Scientific learning, competency-guided, subject-oriented. I mean, instead of subject-oriented, more structured, nice. Early clinical exposure, EdCom, critical thinking, problem solving, OBE, very nice, very beautiful. I can see many of you responding still. Okay, electives, personalized, practical approach. Yes, this stands out. Practical approach. Many of you have written practical approach. Okay, many of you still going with it. Workplace assessment. Very nice. Importance of feedback. Okay, beautiful. All right, so that was the okay. There are a few more typing. Right, so you can see this is how a beautiful word cloud is created here. The word cloud says most of you agree with the CBME being more practically approachable compared to that of the traditional curriculum. So now that you have understood this, let's go into the next objective. I just discussed two objectives now. That is how we evolved from the older one to the new one. We also saw how CBME and the traditional curriculum are different. All right. So now that you have learned through it, and that makes my tasks easier, then I wouldn't focus more on this. Then now that you all have shown me that you have already understood, so let me just go to the next one. All right. So now diving into the third part of the session, that is pros of the CBME curriculum. I'm sure this would just have some more repetitions. Please bear with me, but that's important. I have divided this pros into three parts: the pros for the faculty, for the students, and the society. So most of you have made this very easy for me. Some of you did mention that it's a very well drafted curriculum framework. We already got the competencies. There are many new components added. The components were mentioned by most of you. Most of our faculty who had not had training from a very long time had to undergo BCME, RBCW, and CISP and become trained for supporting CBME. So there were increased faculty who had institutional support to get trained in faculty developments. There was an opportunity to use new teaching learning methods like problem-based, case-based learning, and DOAPs. You can type in the chat box if you're not aware of what is DOAP, and we'll answer it there. Now, these teaching learning methods, some may argue that I did use them even when I was a traditional, I'm following the traditional teaching. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. We used them, but then it was not documented. It was not compulsory. Many colleges didn't do it. Now, most of the colleges had to do it, and so it is one of the most important pros of our CBME curriculum. The internal assessment did happen then, but then there was no documentation, no importance, no value given to the internal assessment marks, and the feedback was probably very less given after the formative assessment. The mentorship and the monitoring of the students did happen, but again, as I mentioned, it was not having specified time and place. But now with CBME, it was having a specific importance and space. There are mentorship logbooks also in medical colleges, many of them. The responsibilities now have to be shared by students. The equal responsibilities have to be taken up by the students also during SGTs, during SDLs, during research and electives. They are the ones responsible for their own learning. For the students, There is a more focus on development of professional skills in terms of communication and attitude. We have this ethics model or ETCOM wherein more of emphasis, time, space, feedback, evaluation is given for ETCOM now. There are self-directed learning sessions now, also emphasis on making the students lifelong learners. They can utilize the benefits of mentorship, choice of electives is given. They have a self-paced learning of skills. What I mean by this is they can have multiple attempts to learn certain skills, and they are those certified skills. There is also a day-to-day assessment available. That is for those students who perform every day in some, end of portion exams, tests, in clinics, in postings. They all are getting the importance for the day-to-day assessment rather than just being assessed at one day at the end of the year. Also, they are getting feedbacks after such assessments. To the society, we are giving society tailor-made doctors. I mean to say our IMGs now can serve the medical needs of our Indian community. Those who were not trained very well for communication skills and health advocacy, we are now having a specified curriculum, and our society would get such trained doctors. Also with soft skills, the patients would be benefited with much more ethical, empathetic and professional behavior from our IMGs with the advent and implementation of CBME curriculum. So now diving deep into the challenges that we faced. So again, you'll have to do the same thing. Please scan the QR code, follow the poll. So now the method of polling here is to rank, okay? Please concentrate and do it. You have to rank these 6 components in the CBME curriculum as per your experience. So participants, please start the ranking. The highest difficulty will be rank number 1. The one component which was most difficult for you to implement in your own college, in your own department. You have to rank all of them one by one from 1 to 6, 1 being the most difficult. You can scan the QR code or join the slido.com. Okay, I can see that skills training was the most difficult one. Yes, the statistics are changing. Okay, ETCOM, skills training, SDL. Okay. All right. Many of you still agreeing with skill training being a problem. Okay. Beautiful. Right. Very nice. Okay. Still the skills training domain predominates as a difficult task to do. Many more typing. Okay. In the chat box also, we have so many responses still saying that skills training is a problem. All right. Okay, many of you still agree. Okay, many of you still ranking it. Okay, as I can see, maximum number of people still feel, about 80% of the people still feel that skills training. Okay, there are people who say mentorship is a problem. Dr. Syed says. The Faculty of Pharmacology at Karad says that SDL has been their problem. Okay, skills training still predominates. All right. So now with this graph, you agree, I have just jotted down a few of them. You would all agree that implementing CBME, which now I have found that had so many advantages, is a challenge, is still a difficult thing to do. So thank you very much for this ranking. Let us see what are the challenges that we are going to face. We anticipate what kind of challenges. I'm sure people who have been in this field from 2019 have faced all of this. So the cons and challenges of CBME curriculum in terms of faculty. Now, you all would definitely agree with me that we, the faculty, are very crucial for implementing the CBME in our medical colleges. We had to face this quick transition. I still remember 2019, where most of us MEU members had to run to the nodal center to get trained. We hardly had any idea about various terminologies as to what is CBME, how to implement, what are the various changes in assessment. We didn't know about it in 2019, and the transition was quick. We weren't informed of so many changes in the Vision 2015 document. Once here or there, we had heard about it, but then we didn't know that it would have been such a quick changeover from the older to the newer one. Most of the medical colleges had only MEU members trained at that time to implement. Only 5 to 10 teachers were trained to change over from the much longer used older the traditional curriculum to the newer one. And when we were transitioning, we were hit by this pandemic COVID, and that changed the whole situation. So you would all agree with me that we had to face so many problems during the initial phases in 2019 and 2020. Also, there were less motivated staff. There was a lot of resistance. People said that why there is a change needed. Why should we change when we already have trained so many? Were we not good doctors with the older traditional curriculum? Do I not practice? Are my patients not satisfied? And so many reasons were there. There was a lack of sensitization among the staff as well. Also, there was a huge demand for faculty development programs which had to be structured, effective, elaborate, and there was a lot of pressure on the MEU and CC members to have such training programs. They had to be done regularly, and later on when they made it compulsory for promotions, then the pressure mounted so very much on the MEUs and the administrators. Also, the administrators had to have face the action when the reflections were given by various stakeholders. The teaching staff also had to take up reflections from the students, from the various other members of the institution, and adopt to these changes, which was another big challenge. Also, when we had to have an integrated timetable, when there was integration required at various levels, then we had to make timetables. We had to start off with the same topic. Because I am from pharmacology and we are involved in second year of MBBS, I remember when we had to start making the timetables, we had general pharmacology, general pathology, and general microbiology to begin with in the timetable. That was easy. But later on, when we got to know that microbiology and pathology wanted to start immunology, but then our immunology or immunopharmacology was in the end that we were teaching, but we had to bring it up on top to frame an integrated table. So those cooperations weren't smooth. We were required to integrate with the clinical departments and frame objectives, and that another big challenge for us. So there were problems with intra and interdepartmental cooperation. There was a need for robust assessment tools and multiple assessors were needed. Imagine colleges where OSCE, OSPE suddenly began. There was readiness required from the students' point of view as well as the teachers' point of view. There were multiple assessment tools required for assessing communication skills. Imagine use of Kalamazoo scale immediately from a transition from traditional to the CBME curriculum. So this was all posing a very great challenge to many medical colleges and the staff. Also, a frequent change in the governing body guidelines. I have surveyed so many articles while preparing this write-up or the content of the webinar. I've found this as one of the most important challenges while implementing CBME. Frequent changes by the NMC or the MCI had posed many challenges to many of the teachers and the the medical colleges. Also, incentivization lacked. That means either monetary or by other ways, respecting the work that the faculty is doing, the amount of hard work that the colleges are putting in. There was no such incentivization of all these efforts. And that probably was one of the biggest challenge as well. So for teaching faculty, these were the challenges which they faced. Logistic challenges, most of you I'm sure would agree on this. Administrators, the principals, vice principals, pro-vice chancellors, chancellors had to be sensitized, and they underwent training, which was another important difficulty they faced. If they had to set up everything new, there was a financial problem there to set up skill lab, so to set up larger lecture halls for interaction, rooms for SGDs, etc. There were so many financial constraints involved. Also, many colleges had less of regular and more of visiting faculty. Imagine CBME being implemented at medical colleges where the faculty itself is deficit. So it was such a big challenge for those who actually were full-time workers. Also, the infrastructural deficit was in terms of IT departments. If IT department support was not there, then implementing so many components of e-learning, LMS or learning management system definitely is a challenge. Most of our medical colleges have different timings, different student intake. Though all the frameworks are given to us, timetables are still different. So this uniform implementation of CBME is also a challenge to our medical colleges in our country. So these logistic challenges also involved the newer programs. What we faced was the family adoption program. Definitely most of us adopted to it, but there were so many constraints in it. Imagine sending 150 students in a bus, the arrangement of travel, transport, their safety, arranging for faculty every time there is an FAP, 2 or 3 faculty required, arranging the full batch to go or at least in batches was also a big problem. The students adopting 4 or 5 families per head, and cooperation from the families also was a big challenge. Then that student doctor program had to be after 5. Imagine on OPD days, there's quite a bit of rush of admissions, and physicians had to look after this as well, maintain a logbook for it. So there were so many challenges involved. Needless to say, role plays, SDL, CCE, all had their own challenges. Plus, in many deemed universities, we see that there are non-medical courses also. The faculty were involved in courses like dentistry, physiotherapy, to name a few, pharmacy, etc. So the faculty were robbed of timing here as well. So this faculty had to balance all these engagements. So definitely the logistic and practical difficulties were faced by the faculty. Many surveys, many literature surveys have shown that excessive documentation was also a difficulty with CBME curriculum. There were so many logbooks to be maintained, so many updates to be given. There were so many feedback forms to be sent to the NMC and the nodal center. Also, lack of motivation among student faculty. Now, Gen Zers have their own problems. I don't say that they lack motivation or they lack focus, but I don't know why there is a literature stating that in the classroom for learning of skills in undergraduate education, the student preparedness is less. This is a unanimous opinion. Most of the teachers feel that in spite of giving so much of time and preparation towards our classes, the student motivation is less. Student engagement is less. They are more focused on PG entrance training during their undergraduate courses, and they are not very focused on learning these skills. That was also a bigger challenge. We had to have so many interactions, different ways of teaching, so that our students don't lack this kind of motivation with us. Also, faculty resistance, to say the least. I already mentioned so many things about it. The faculty was not ready to change or were less prepared to change. So these posed challenges while implementing or adopting CBME. SWOT analysis, that is strength, weakness, opportunity, and challenges by Guga Priya et al., shows the same repetition. I won't read, there are so many things which are repeating here. You can see that there are opportunities as well. You can see that there are opportunities for development. If we adopt to CBME, we can have innovative teaching learning, feedback from stakeholders, we can develop our infrastructure, make our students responsible for their learning. So these are few repetitions. As you see, there are many papers published on this SWOT and SWOT analysis. So this shows that yes, with our conventional curriculum, we had problems. The answer probably is our CBME, but then CBME also doesn't come easy. It has its strengths, but it has weaknesses and challenges as well. So probably I have summarized the maximum amount of points, but you can put up if I have missed any point in the jotting down of pros and cons in the chat box, and I can read that after the session. So please join us for this last quiz. Now the quiz is only for 30 seconds, but the joining has been given a few seconds time. We do the same thing again, scan the QR code through your Google Lens or go to Google and type slido.com, join with the code. Okay, once I can see a few numbers joining, then I can release the question. You have to choose only one answer, only one correct answer to the question. You have only 30 seconds time after the question is displayed. Please join us with your names. I can see Ankit, I can see RMD ma'am, I can see Shruti, I can see Shraddha, Raghu, Ankit, Norman, There is Dr. Tiwari, MKR, Manish, Diana. Welcome. Thank you for joining. Dr. Shubham, Jyoti, Manish. A few more joining. Okay. Dr. Sanjay, M, Shreyans, Deepa, Riniga, Rakesh. Okay. Kalyan Krishna, welcome, sir. There is T, there is Sonal, Vijay. Thank you so very much. All right, so shall I release the question? Okay, welcome, Mr. Fuzi. I'm sorry if it is Miss Harshad. Okay, let me release the question. People can keep joining. Payal Nayak. All right, welcome. Now, once I display the question, you'll have only 30 seconds. Remember to choose one right answer. Okay, here's the question. What's the long-term impact of CBME in India expected to be? Maintain existing healthcare quality, marginally improve healthcare and education, significantly enhance professional competencies, or dilute the education standards. So you have 10 seconds left. So on the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. All right. Now let's see the right answer. Okay, 94% have chosen C as the answer. 6 feel that the answer could be B. All right. Let me show you the right answer. So C is the right answer. I'm so glad that most of you have chosen it. 94% have chosen the right answer. Let's see who is the winner. All right, Mr. T, Mr. or Miss, I'm not sure. This is the leaderboard. Congratulations, Dr. T, Dr. Santosh Kumar, Dr. Deepak, Dr. Diana, and Dr. Deepa. Thank you all for joining. Let's not, don't disappear now from the screen. I have just final concluding remarks. So here are they. What is the future? So you all predicted it right. It would definitely enhance our competency. So as for our discussion, as we saw, a thematic map has been created by Sulana et al. I was so very impressed with this publication. Please go through it. The themes have been arranged like this. She says that if we had to bring about changes and face the challenges of CBME, there could be these 3 themes to be worked up by the medical colleges and the authorities. If we make a better coordinating institution, if we have a proper participation and improve the participation of students, if we upgrade our infrastructure, then we can probably handle most of the challenges of CBME. That is, for the institutional coordination, we need to have upgraded good medical education unit members who are regularly trained and hold regular meetings and conduct FDPs, have a better engagement incentivization for our faculty, whoever are involved, also have a very good collaborating teams between departments. To improvise on student participation, we can have an effective mentorship program, have a strict attendance policy, also use innovative methods for student involvement, give them incentives for students who participate actively. For infrastructure upgradation, we can have good investments in skill labs, and our IT support can be improved. The publication here says that if we perform this kind of upgrade in our individual medical colleges and departments, most of the challenges that we discussed during the webinar can be handled, and CBME can be much more in a better way implemented in our country. So to conclude, my remarks would be, there is definitely challenges with CBME. I can keep it as an unbiased way of saying that for CBME, which remains to be a forever debatable topic, there are passionate proponents who say that the older curriculum was better and this change is not required. But there are equally vocal critics who say that CBME would be better and it has its challenges, but they can be overcome and the change is needed. The possible solution, according to me, for the inherent problems of the conventional system is CBME. So to bring about this change, in our curriculum, we all have to put our efforts to have a systemic collaborative approach, have a dedication towards the curriculum, and have an involvement of stakeholders, medical educators, students, administrators, policymakers, all to come together and have a proper implementation and overcome the challenges of CBN. So having said that, let me leave it open for discussion. If the organizers permit, you can always ask questions in the chat box. Let me display these references. I had referred to so many of them, but these are the important ones. In case you want to refer to them, please, you can mail me on this email ID. I can send you all the full text articles of these references. Take a minute's time to scan this QR code and send me your feedbacks. Please, your valuable constructive feedback is of paramount importance to me. I would definitely improve upon and answer your queries if any. Now you can just take 1 minute to scan this, go to the Google form. It has very few questions. It would just take few seconds for you all to answer. Please do that. And I take this opportunity to thank all the organizing team members, also the participants who have gone through me through the session of 55 minutes. I thank you all for your kind attention. Thank you.
It was a great pleasure to have you on this platform, ma'am. As a student, I really, really respect amidst all these changes how the faculties are still working so hard to serve their students. So I really encourage and appreciate your efforts. And our platform encourages every faculty to come up with such topics so that we can make learning and teaching process much more collaborative and easier for all of us. Thank you, ma'am, once again for stepping up to our platform. This was our first initiative, and your presentation was very crisp and concise. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Zeel. Thank you.
Uh, Ma'am, can we take up some doubts?
Yes, of course.
Uh, I would like to ask all the joinees to unmute themselves in case anyone wants to ask ma'am something. Okay, ma'am, I guess we are done. So
All
I
right.
once again request so much pleasure and thank you, ma'am, for coming and stepping up to our platform.
Thank you so very much. I can see so many reactions already. There are a few questions also. More so not questions or queries, but there are so many points added probably which I missed. Thank you so very much for this opportunity. Thank you very much, all of you, for attending the session. I am very, very thankful. Thank you.